Alright, I've been putting it off long enough as is. A whole season of comic book movies, and I have not once addressed the pink elephant in the room.
Talking about this?
I was talking about reviewing a movie based on a hero from DC.
Talking about this?
The one they made before that.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Ha! What better place to do it than the con that inspired me to become the hipster ninja?
Didn't you start in Burlington?
Do you roll the credits? Two of the biggest complaints people have had about the recently launched DC Cinematic Universe have been its washed-out color palette and the fact that just about every character has been Batman from the Lego movie.
Darkness. No parents. Continue darkness.
But that wasn't always the case. Okay, in the 2000s it totally was, but one movie dared to be different. And it bombed harder than an Uva Bowl Kickstarter. Burn! Today we'll be looking at the reason DC has gone all dark and gritty, Green Lantern. But first, a spoiler-free summary on the Emerald Crusader.
The original Green Lantern, Alan Scott, was created by Martin Odell during the golden age of comics, the 1940s, and had a magical ring that needed to be charged every 24 hours.
But this is not the Lantern we'll be focusing on today, no. Today we'll be looking at his successor, Hal Jordan.
Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps were created by Julius Schwartz in 1959. Jordan was a test pilot for a company known as Ferris Aircrafts, but was commissioned to join the Green Lantern Corps, a group of intergalactic peacekeepers, by a dying alien named Abin Sur. The series still runs to this day, with several other human lanterns being recruited to the Corps, including John Stewart. The other one. That's better. Kyle Rayner, Guy Gardner, and the most recent recruit, Simon Baz. The comic was so popular that Warner Brothers decided to adapt it into a movie focusing on Jordan's backstory and commissioning as a Lantern. Unfortunately, the movie would go on to be the 13th biggest box office bust in history, and was supposedly the reason why Warner Brothers had issued an alleged no-jokes policy for the DC Cinematic Universe.
Yes, because it's so hard to make a movie that's funny but can still have a serious story. Oh, wait. Before I bring the MCU any further into this, let's dive into 2011's Green Lantern.
The movie opens with a narration in space, giving us a quick backstory on the origin of the Green Lanterns, as well as detailing the Corps' greatest enemy, a being of fear known simply as Parallax, and how they trapped him in a section of space known as the Lost Sector. We then cut to the Lost Sector, where a group of crash survivors that just happened to land on planet Ryut, the planet in the Lost Sector that Parallax, voiced by Clancy Brown of all people, yes, that Clancy Brown, was imprisoned, and their presence awakens the being.
Ah! After 10,000 years, I'm free! It's time to conquer Earth!
Sorry, I really couldn't resist the Power Rangers reference, but these are the effects we have to deal with, folks. Be very afraid.
We then cut to 6 months later, where Green Lantern Abin Sur, played by Temuera Morrison, is patrolling his designated area, Space Sector 2814, which just so happens to include the planet Earth, when he's contacted by fellow Lantern Sinestro, played by Mark Strong.
Well, yes and no, but spoilers.
Sinestro informs Sur that the planet he was on his way to evacuate has been destroyed, and that he has requested an audience with the Guardians of Oa, the group of dickbags that run the Green Lantern Corps.
Well, at least they've been dickbags in every other piece of media I've seen them in. Although that was the New 52, and everybody's kind of dickbags in that.
Before hanging up. Unfortunately, before Sur can take in what he's been told, Parallax attacks. Sur tries to fight off the abysmal CGI, but is critically wounded and forced to escape to the closest inhabited planet to select his replacement.
Gee, I wonder if his replacement is going to be on Earth. The foreshadowing is so subtle I can't tell.
We then cut to planet Earth, where we're introduced to test pilot Hal Jordan, played by future Deadpool Ryan Reynolds. It turns out that he's late for an important simulation to test out some new fighter drones and rushes to get ready when he runs into his boss, obvious love interest and future star Sapphire Carol Ferris, played by Blake Lively. After basically throwing the fact that they used to date into our faces, they begin the simulation and Hal quickly screws it up. First he uses Carol as a decoy to try and take out both drones, and then he flies up as far as both planes can go in an attempt to make them stall.
And to be fair, it works. A little too well.
Hal manages to nail both drones as they fall, but the altitude disables his plane as well, sending him into a nosedive. His friend and Ferris Aircraft's engineer, Tom Kalmaku, played by Taika Waititi, tries to talk him through how to save himself, but Hal suddenly has a flashback to his father, Martin Jordan, played by John Tenney, and how he died in a freak accident during a test flight. Luckily, Hal manages to snap out of it in time to eject before his jet hits the ground, but is then chewed out by his superiors, including Carol and her father Carl, played by J.O. Sanders, for his reckless behavior, and they inform Hal that he'll be grounded until further notice. After we tease some more romantic tension between Hal and Carol, we then cut to the remains of Abinsor's escape pod as he uses his ring to send out a beacon to find a suitable replacement. Cut through a rather pointless scene where Hal's brother Jack, played by Michael Doyle, also chews him out for his reckless behavior, and Soar's beacon grabs Hal and delivers him to the escape pod via what I assume is some very piss-poor green screen work. Seeing Soar's in trouble, Hal rushes in to try and save him, but Soar quickly dies after giving up his lantern and ring, telling Hal to speak the oath.
I'm sorry, shouldn't you be telling him the oath first? I mean, it's not like he's just gonna learn it through some weirdly contrived bullcrap like touching the lantern to the ring, essentially learning it by osmosis. That would be ridiculous!
We then cut to Oa, where the Guardians inform Sinestro that Abin-Sur is dead, and he asks if they can do anything. Unfortunately, the Guardians are kind of chicken poop asshats.
Oh, will you relax? I said hat.
And they simply say that they are assessing the situation. Sinestro then convinces the Guardians to allow him to take a squadron of his strongest lanterns to try and fight the threat. We then cut to Dr. Hector Hammond, played by Peter Sarsgaard, who is taken by a pair of suits to an undisclosed location to meet up with Amanda Waller. Yes, that Amanda Waller, played by Angela Bassett, who tells him that he was recruited to study the body of Abin-Sur. Cut back to Hal's apartment, and after some somewhat chuckle-worthy attempts to activate the ring...
I, Hal Jordan, do solemnly swear to pledge allegiance to a lantern that I got from a dying purple alien, to infinity and beyond. By the power of Grayskull. What the hell?
Hal magically learns the oath through some contrived bullcrap by tapping the ring to the lantern, essentially learning the oath through osmosis.
Brightest day and blackest night. No evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. Green Lantern's life.
Okay, a later scene does reveal that the lantern did bestow all of Abin-Sur's prior knowledge onto Hal, so I guess I can forgive that. It just seems really forced.
Meanwhile, Hammond begins his autopsy on Abin-Sur, which causes a small piece of parallax that had apparently been in the wound to latch itself onto him. Cut through another scene of Hal and Carol teasing their past, the imminent rekindling of their relationship, and the fact that Hal refuses to admit that he's afraid of something, and he gets jumped in the parking lot by 3 coworkers that had been screwed by his antics. The scene really only serves to show the power of his new ring, which may or may not have killed the 3 coworkers in the process.
Jeez, we're not even halfway through this movie yet, and our hero's already racked up a body count. DC, everybody!
However, activating the ring causes him to be transported to Oa via more piss-poor CGI, while Parallax begins to mutate Hammond. We then cut to what I assume is Oa's medical facility, where Hal is being assessed by, my god, that is some CGI! When... well...
The sensation you're feeling is the quickening.
And it's here. where we come to the most infamous aspect of the movie.
The fully CGI lantern suit complete with stupid-looking mask. There's no getting around this, it looks really silly. I'm talking Man of Steel Superman costume silly. Hell, if you've seen the recent trailer for the upcoming Deadpool movie, this abomination is what Reynolds' character Wade Wilson is referring to when he begged they not make the suit green or animated. After Hal has a full-on geek-out moment that we all probably would have had if we were in his shoes.
There's no shame in admitting it, folks.
We're then introduced to, oh dear God, Killer with Fire! Tomar Ray, voiced by Jeffrey Rush. He explains what I mentioned earlier, how the ring bestowed all of Abinsur's prior knowledge onto Hal when he was chosen, and we then get a panning shot that shows off the CGI clusterfuck that is Oa, while Hal quickly learns how to use the ring to fly. During the flight...
Have I mentioned the CGI integration is ballsack yet?
Several times.
Okay, just making sure.
Tomar Ray gives some exposition on how the ring's power is based on Hal's will, and after a briefing where Sinestro informs the Lanterns about the threat Parallax poses and his plans to stop it, we get some more exposition from Tomar Ray about how the ring works.
To master the ring, you must learn to focus your will and create what you see in your mind. The ring's limits are only what you can imagine.
And it's here where we're introduced to Hal's combat training officer, Kilowog, voiced by the late Michael Clark Duncan.
And despite looking like one of the excretions from my deepest, darkest nightmares, and much like in Daredevil, the crappy movie, not the awesome sauce Netflix TV show, which you should totally be watching as soon as this video's done, Michael Clark Duncan is easily the most, if not one of the most, entertaining parts of this movie. Hands down.
Welcome to Ring Slinging 101, or as I like to call it, the worst day of your worthless life. The human ain't never seen one before. You smell funny.
I smell funny.
So we begin the training montage with Hal learning all the basics of making constructs with the ring. Hal is then introduced to his future mortal enemy Sinestro, who decides to test Hal's will even further. Long story short, Sinestro kicks the ever-loving crap out of Hal, berates him for being afraid, and then leaves. As Hal gives up, Tomar Ray tries to insist that the ring chose him for a reason, but Hal ends up flying home anyways. We then cut to a nearby college where it's revealed that Parallax is continuing to screw with Hammond, giving him the ability to read one of his students' minds. The contents of which, being that he sucks as a teacher, proceed to piss him off, and... well, this happens. Hammond then proceeds to take a sample of his blood to figure out what's happening to him, and discovers that it's mutating. Before getting a text from his father, one of the senators present during Hal's flight test at the beginning of the movie, and it's revealed that he was the one who asked him to perform the autopsy on Abin-Sur, which only pisses the crazy mutating doctor off. We then cut to Sector 2312, where Sinestro and his fellow Lanterns prepare to attack Parallax. But this proves to fail miserably, and more Lanterns are slaughtered in the process.
Way to go, jackass.
So Sinestro goes to the Guardians for advice, but they reveal that they originally created Parallax as a way to strengthen the Corps, using the power of fear to help strengthen them. Unfortunately, this proves to be a stupid-ass idea, so one of the Guardians had tried to destroy the threat, only to become possessed by Parallax himself, and the only one able to stop him was Abin-Sur, who had managed to contain the being and, as the prologue mentioned, hide it in the Lost Sector. Sinestro then deduces that Parallax must be coming towards Oa to seek its vengeance.
Oh, but it gets better.
Sinestro then gets the bright idea to harness the power of fear, creating a yellow ring to combat the being made of pure fear.
Well, yeah, that worked out so well last time. No, wait, no, that's what created Parallax in the first place. And then there's the minor, insignificant, almost inconsequential detail that, oh yeah, it's coming from a guy named Sinestro.
Cut back to Earth, where Carl Ferris is hosting a party celebrating the sale of the fighter drones from earlier in the movie, and it's revealed that Hammond and Hal apparently knew each other, and after Senator Hammond strikes up a conversation with Hal, causing the Doctor to get pissed and storm off, we get some more relationship teasing between Carol and Hal. Shortly after that, Hammond begins to brag to Carol, who is also revealed to know him, about examining Abinsor's body, which his father quickly denies, much to the annoyance of the crazy-ass Doctor, who then proceeds to try and kill him as he flies off in his helicopter with the help of his parallax-induced powers, causing the helicopter to lose control. Luckily, Hal manages to change into his lantern costume and not only save Carol from being hit by the obviously fake CG helicopter.
Ah yes, the leading cause of fatalities in Coast City, aside from alien smoke monsters made of fear and megalomaniacal alien overlords with grudges against Superman. True story.
Before saving her again from the falling stage, he then safely lands Senator Hammond's helicopter. Hal then pulls an unharmed Carol out of the wreckage, reuniting her with her father before flying off. Cut to the next morning, where Tom is revealed to have deduced that Hal was in fact the mysterious figure in green.
Well, of course. I mean, these two have probably known each other for a long time. What, you think just because Hal's got a mask that can barely cover his eyes, Tom's not gonna know who he is?
After Tom convinces Hal to show him the suit, he decides to fly off to surprise Carol as the Lantern, but she has her suspicions.
Hal?
Miss?
Hal? Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god, Hal!
How did you know it was me?
Dude, you two have literally known each other forever, and you so obviously used to date. What?
You don't think I would recognize you because I can't see your cheekbones?
What she said.
So Hal explains everything to Carol and also reveals how he sort of quit the Corps, which pisses Carol off. Unfortunately, as Hal leaves, Hammond is revealed to have followed them and decides to head back to his research lab where he's confronted by Dr. Waller. After being given a brief look at her backstory, thanks to Hammond's apparent ability to read people's memories, they head to her lab where Hammond's dad confronts him, claiming he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs due to his exposure to parallax, and they sedate him in an attempt to cure him of his infestation. Back to the beach where Hal found Abin-Sur, he decides to head back to Oa, but the ring detects a strange presence, and we then cut back to Dr. Waller's lab where Hammond wakes up from his sedation and proceeds to kill almost all of the things, save for his father and possibly Dr. Waller, her fate is kind of up in the air, before Hal manages to arrive on the scene. Long story short, Hal clears out Dr. Waller, but then proceeds to get the crap kicked out of him, and Hammond then uses his newfound ability to discover Hal's identity.
I guess despite the fact that this guy clearly knew Hal just as long as Carol, he couldn't recognize him past a mask that could barely cover his eyes.
So after some further establishing of how Hal is apparently afraid, Hammond proceeds to give his father a Viking funeral, while he's still breathing. Pissed off, Hal tries to use his ring to stop him, but this only serves to attract the attention of Parallax, who proceeds to monologue about devouring the Earth before he goes to destroy Oa. Hal then tells Tom and Carol about the Beast's plans, and then claims that the ring had made a mistake, explaining how a Green Lantern has to be fearless, something that Hal clearly isn't. Carol then gives Hal a motivational speech about his dad's courage, and how the ring must have sensed Hal's potential for great courage as well. This is apparently enough to convince Hal to fly off to Oa, where it's revealed that the Guardians are actually taking Sinestro's advice and creating a yellow ring.
Okay, quick little tangent just to explain something.
In the comics, there are multiple Lantern Corps with different colors representing different emotions. The Pink Star Sapphires, powered by love, the Blue Lanterns, powered by hope, and even Red Lanterns, powered by rage. The Green Lantern's biggest weakness is fear, represented by yellow.
Oh, but that's not all. Cause just guess who they gave this horrible power to.
Guy with the obvious villain?
The guy with the obvious villain name. Seriously, you gave this power that killed so many of your own to a guy who looks like this, and is named Sinestro. Sinestro! Seriously, this can't end any other way than him turning evil and forming his own core.
Thankfully, Hal arrives on the scene and begs for the Lantern's help with a motivational speech of his own, finally admitting that he's afraid and calling the Guardians out on feeling the same way. Unfortunately, the Guardians refuse to help, so Hal decides, "F the police, I'll do it myself," and flies back to Earth as Parallax quickly follows suit. Cut to Ferris Aircrafts, and Hal arrives on the scene to find Carol has apparently been captured by Hammond, who proceeds to do what every cliche villain does in the end.
He starts monologuing?
He starts monologuing!
Hammond proceeds to monologue about turning Carol into another vessel for Parallax, but Hal quickly suggests a trade, his ring for Carol's safety. Hammond takes the ring but refuses to let Carol go and tries to use it to kill Hal. Unfortunately, this doesn't work as there's one tiny little detail that Hal forgot to mention.
See, the way it works is, you have to be chosen.
Almost on cue, the blast is redirected towards Hammond, the force of which causes him to release Carol, just as Parallax arrives on the scene and kills the crazy-ass doctor for failing him. With Hammond dead, the final battle begins with Hal sprinting towards his ring, only to be captured by Parallax. Thankfully, Carol is able to save him by activating the fighter drones to distract the beast long enough for Carol to toss Hal his ring, and they both fly off. Unfortunately, Parallax then turns his attention to Coast City. Thankfully, Hal arrives on the scene to save as many people as he can, but is hopelessly outgunned by Parallax, who quickly traps him and begins draining his willpower. However, Hal is able to speak the oath to muster up enough strength to essentially hulk up and flies through Parallax, leading him into space.
Which actually calls back to two earlier scenes.
The first being the dogfight with drones, where he was able to outmaneuver them, and the other being his training montage where Kilowog had him flying away from an artificial sun and explaining how its gravity affects an object based on its size.
In short, the bigger it is, the faster it burns. Also, yes, Hal is going to lead the giant smoke monster made of fear towards the sun.
Hal is able to outmaneuver Parallax, just like he did with the drones, but is still caught in the sun's gravitational pull. Parallax tries to kill him again, but the pull is too strong. So Hal, with what little power he supposedly has left, in another callback from earlier on in the movie, loosens the restraints for the jets he created and punches Parallax in the face, launching him into the sun. Unfortunately, the piss-poor CGI Hal is too weak to fly himself out of the sun's pull, but he is quickly saved by Kilowog, Tomar, Ray, and Sinestro. After that, we roll the epilogue. Sinestro commends Hal for his courage, the Lanterns celebrate, and Carol and Hal are apparently once again a couple.
At least until she becomes a Star Sapphire.
And then Hal flies off to do all kinds of Green Lantern stuff while Tomar Ray narrates about how he would become the greatest of all Lanterns. The end.
Okay, yes, there is a mid-credit scene showing Sinestro donning the yellow ring, thus cementing the heel turn we all saw coming from a mile away for some obvious sequel begging. But there was no sequel to speak of, and quite frankly, I can see why.
The writing for this movie was lackluster to say the least, and the effects were laughable at best. The overly CG-looking lantern suit and mask being the most notable examples.
The only decent aspect of this movie in my eyes were the performances. These actors were clearly doing what they could to try and salvage what was an utterly terrible script.
The standout being a completely wasted Michael Clark Duncan as Kilowog, but Ryan Reynolds and Mark Strong also put in fairly decent performances as Hal Jordan and Sinestro respectively.
All in all, I actually found this movie somewhat enjoyable, in a so bad it's good kind of way.
Hell, even the pop of color was a welcome change from later films Warner Bros. And DC would release. Unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, the bombing of this movie supposedly led DC to adopt their no-jokes policy, which led to the much darker DC cinematic universe with an especially washed-out color palette.
Which leads us to the subject for our Season 3 finale. Tune in next time when we finally take a look at Man of Steel.
Hey guys, Kira here. Thanks as always for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and I am so sorry that it took as long as it did to come out. Hopefully it was worth the wait for you guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Also, I'd like to give a quick thanks to the fine folks at ConBravo for allowing me to film at their convention this year, as well as all the cool people who made their little cameos here and there, including WhyBoy of Cartoon Corner Productions, Sketch of Sketchy Side of Memory Lane, DragonLordZero, who you may remember from many of my Kira Plays Cards Against Humanity streams, and of course Faceless, Critic of Faceless Reviews, who you can also check out on peanutbutterdisaster.com, along with any of my previous work, my Let's Plays, my stream archives, even my past reviews. And of course, if you'd like to follow me on social media, I am on Twitter at KiraKennedyHNR, Tumblr at KiraKennedyHNR.tumblr.com, and of course you can always check out my Facebook page, facebook.com/KiraKennedyReviews. So until next time, I'm Kira Kennedy, and thank you for watching. Well, it took way longer than I thought it would, but I finally got it done. Now to get started on you.
Man of Steel, huh? Over here. Your computer screen, dude.
I don't see anything.
Surprise!
Sin Cara?
What? No, Faceless.
That's what I said.
You said...
It means faceless in Spanish.
Whatever.
How the hell are you doing this anyways?
The internet?
That's not how it works.
Look, do you want to do a crossover or not?
Come again?
Man of Steel? Do you want to do a crossover or not?
But I just did a crossover, like, episode before this one.
Okay, one, that video was originally posted in May.
I had school and work.
And two, I want to make sure that you're fair and balanced with this review.
Okay, when am I not fair and balanced?
Breaking Dawn Part 2.
In short, relationships don't work that way.
To be fair, I haven't done a review like that since...
Tough shit, we're doing a crossover.
Show me what you're after, just a little faster.
Peanut butter disaster.